doctors across the country are warning that not enough people are being vaccinated against the flu. And this comes as pediatric hospitals have spent weeks battling a large influx of patients dealing with respiratory illness. I'm joined live now by Jill Promoli. She runs a flu shot campaign called For Jude, For Everyone, after losing her 2-year-old son, Jude, to the flu in 2016. Jill, first of all, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I am aware of the story, and I've told you as well off camera that this is the story that made me start taking my flu shot again a few years ago, because I had stopped thinking that I was not at risk and not a risk to others. Tell us about your experience for those who are not aware.
Yeah, so it was just about 6.5 years ago, and it was late in the season. It was May when the flu came home to our household, but at first nobody knew that it was the flu. So my daughter, who is now in grade 7, was in kindergarten at the time, and we got a call that she developed a fever at school. And when I went to go pick her up, we found out that this nasty bug had been going through the class, and most of the class had already had it. Some had been out for weeks, some hospitalized. And so for her, it was fairly mild. You know, she had a fever for less than 24 hours. We kept her home for a few days to make sure that we weren't sending her back and potentially continuing to infect others. But she was okay fairly quickly. And then the Friday morning, so a few days later, on May 6th, Jude woke up, my 2-year-old twin son. With a low grade fever, and I thought, okay, so it's cycling through. We've already seen this week. We know what this looks like, and I thought, okay, well, we can manage this. He mostly seemed fine. Aside from the fever, you would never know that he was sick. And we had a fairly quiet day. I put my boys down for their afternoon nap, and he was laughing. And he died that day during his afternoon nap of cardiac arrest caused by influenza B. And so, it's not the kind of thing that you ever expect to happen. It's not something that you think of when you think of the flu. You think it's something that's like a bad cold or a stomach bug, and it's neither of those things. And it started just learning really what the flu is, and a lot more about how we can have this conversation.
So, hearing your story, and again, you using this story to try to encourage people to get their flu shots as much as possible every season since. What's your reaction when you hear that there is this low uptake in the flu shots, especially among children?
Yeah, it's a tough one because I think that's something that has always been common. For us, we've always been in the habit of getting the flu shot because we've had higher risk loved ones in our lives. We've had family members going through cancer treatment. We've had older loved ones. So for us, it was a habit. But I was surprised after we lost Jude to learn how low flu shot uptake actually is in Ontario. So at that time, it was around 34%. We're now usually around 40%, but this year it has been quite low so far. And that is concerning because we know that while the flu shot isn't a guarantee, it significantly reduces the rate of infection. And if you do get the flu after having had the flu shot, you're much less likely to suffer the most severe consequences, including hospitalization and death. And so it's concerning because we do know the people who are at highest risk are children under 5, people over 65, pregnant people, and people who have underlying health concerns. So people who are going through cancer treatment, people who have a heart condition, people who may not be aware that they have an underlying health concern and are at greater risk. So knowing that we have such low flu shot rates means that we have a lot of people who are at greater risk just because as a community, we're not doing as much that we can to put those walls up to prevent the spread of flu.
Now, it was last week that the Chief Medical Officer of Health, Kieran Moore, had said that he believes that we're close to the peak of the flu. Do you feel like that may impact other people who haven't got their flu shot yet?
Yeah. So we do want to see those numbers coming down because they actually have been exceptionally high. This has been a rough flu season, and that's not surprising. I think we were a lot of us expecting it to be high numbers, but it has hit us very, very hard, and it's particularly hit young children hard this year. So when we look at the numbers compared to previous years, we're seeing more than double at this point that we see at the peak of other flu seasons. So it's it's tough because while we hear, okay, well, it's peaked, peak doesn't mean over. It just means that maybe the numbers are starting to come down, but there are still months of flu season left after the peak happens. So when we think about now, it's only December. We should expect that the flu season is going to continue until mid to late spring. And while we're seeing potentially the peak of A, and looking at the numbers now, there's a good chance that is happening. We are still seeing very, very high numbers. So the lab confirmed cases are still in around the 9 and 10,000 mark. So that's a lot of people who are getting confirmed cases in hospitals at their doctor's offices. So we wanted to make sure that we're doing what we can to prevent the spread of the flu, because this is affecting people's health. It means that there's a lot of kids who are not able to go to school right now because they're very sick. It means that people are going to be affected when they go to visit families and loved ones over the holidays. And then when they return back to school in January, when we go back to our regular routines, we're going to see all of that illness that spread through the holidays. It's going to come right back again, and we're going to have, we're going to have people impacted in a second way. But the other part of that too is that right now we're dealing with the A wave of influenza. So we see two peaks happen in a season. So there's influenza A, and then we see influenza B, which happens after. And influenza B is also particularly hard on seniors and young children. And it's actually influenza B that we lost Jude to. So right now we're seeing very low levels of influenza B activity. We should expect that to be coming afterwards. And that is also part of our flu shot. So getting protected now is going to help protect our families and our loved ones from not just from not being sick, but also from hopefully preventing other families from losing their lives and their loved ones.
Absolutely. Jill, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Really do appreciate you sharing your story and trying to help others, of course, by getting that flu shot.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care. That's Jill Promoli for Jude for everyone. Check that out online.